Hello and welcome everyone. This is Wylker, and today we are going to do a spotlight tutorial on logistics pipes. I say we because I'm hanging out with Zorro, and he is one of the people mostly responsible for continuing logistics pipes after Minecraft 1.2.5, and he's been joined since then by a few other people, Davboecki and some other contributors. The two I know of that do a ton of work are Art4s and Art Bluestroke, but I'm sure you have a couple more that contribute besides that, don't you?
Yeah, sure. We also have, well, the full list is on GitHub, of course, but there's also GUI who's lately reworking packet stuff, and he will do some more stuff. Yeah, that's all.
Okay. Well, and you'll find, of course, a link in the description of the video to where you can find this mod and to the GitHub and stuff. But let's jump right into it. I've had a lot of requests. People know I'm a huge fan and proponent of logistics pipes. I've had a lot of requests to show how it works. So we are going to get into some of the basics and a couple of the more advanced mechanics. And we're also going to show off a lot of the new stuff that you guys may not be familiar with if you're not kind of on a bleeding edge version of logistics pipes. So let's start off with a basic explanation of how logistics pipes works. And the concepts I want to explain to you are active and passive requesting. An active request means that something in your pipe network is asking the network to provide it something, okay? So that means that if this chest down here is looking for a particular item, it looks on the whole network, and if one's available, it'll get sent over to it. That's an active request. A passive request is a little bit different. What that means is that if an item enters the network from somewhere, from some source, and it has a passive request somewhere, it will end up in that location. But if there's an item that's already in the network and there's a passive request for it somewhere, it won't move any items around. That's a sort of important concept. I don't want to belabor it too much. Hopefully it'll become more clear as we talk about the different modules and pipes and inventory controls and things like that. So I have a setup here, and in order to run logistics pipes, now this is a config option. You can make it not require power, but in general, in order to run a logistics pipe network, you need to build one of these logistics power junctions. And then you need to provide it with power, either industrial craft power or buildcraft energy. Either one of those will work to provide this thing with power. Do these accept UE energy, Zorro?
I don't know, really.
I don't know either, and it doesn't matter. So,
it doesn't really matter.
Either, in this case, I'm just powering it with a redstone energy cell that I buried beneath it to keep it out of the way. And then, in order to pass that power from your power junction into your network, you need to use a basic logistics pipe. The basic logistics pipe is going to be one of the core building blocks for your whole logistics pipe system. You use this pipe as a basis to build a ton of the other pipes. So you notice I have a logistics pipe connected to the side of my logistics power junction, and I also have it connected over here to another block that we're going to talk about a little bit later. So the number one thing that people generally want to do with their logistics pipe network is sort items. And I'm going to show you how that works. In order to do that, we need to have a way to get items out of a chest and into our logistics pipe network. And the way we do that is with a logistics chassis. And there are several versions of the chassis available. They're all based off upgrading, either starting from a basic logistics pipe or upgrading one of the other chassis. And the higher up the tech chain of your logistics chassis go, the more you can do with them. You'll see here if I right click with a wrench on a basic logistics pipe, I have a real simple interface here. It talks about requested items and it talks about default route, and we'll get into what exactly those mean here in a minute. But as soon as I build a logistics chassis Mark 1, like this guy here, it changes my interface completely. Now, instead of an interface for the default item and requested items, we've got a module input we can do here. And modules are built in a variety of different ways. You can either use gears or you can use chipsets from Buildcraft in order to build them. And what those are going to do is allow you to customize these chassis. So chassis go Mark 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and based off what level they are, it tells you how many modules you can plug into them. So the first thing I want to do is show you how to get items out of a chest and into your logistics pipe network. But in order to do that, we have to do a little bit of groundwork first. So let's go back over here and talk about this basic logistics pipe. You'll notice I have the basic logistics pipe here with a chest on top of it. I also want you to notice that the section of the pipe that connects to the chest is red. The red portion of a basic logistics pipe is letting you know that it has an inventory connected to it, okay? You'll also notice 4 little squares on this pipe. Those 4 little squares are letting us know that it has power, and then the other green lines are letting it know that it has a valid connection to the network in those directions. And those are all going to be important things for some of the other stuff I'll show you here in a minute. What we're going to do here with this basic logistics pipe is talk about what default routing is. A default route means that if an item enters your network and it has nowhere to go, it will end up in the connected inventory. So I'm going to switch this to default route yes. Okay. And so what's going to happen is, let's just take, let's throw some cobble into this chest here. Okay. So now that there's cobblestone in this chest, I want to get it into my network. In order to do that, I have 2 options. I can use either a quick sort module or an extractor module. And there's reasons to use both of them. We're going to talk about both of them right now. A quick sort module, which I'm going to plug into this chest, will look on your network for valid destinations, okay? It's going to analyze the contents of this chest, and it's going to look across this whole network, and if there's a valid destination for it somewhere, it will pull it out of the chest. Oops, spinning. It will pull it out of the chest and send it to the valid destination. Now you'll notice here that this cobblestone is not leaving, okay? It's not getting pulled out of the chest. And that's because nowhere on this network do I have a place for cobblestone to end up. So the quick sort module will look only for valid destinations. Now, if I come back over here to this basic logistics pipe, and here, let me grab one of these cobbles out of here. Oops, or a whole stack, whatever. If I come back over here to my basic logistics pipe and I now add a cobblestone under the requested items section of this, what should happen here is my...
You already set it to default route.
Oh yeah, sorry. So we got to turn that off. So once I turn off the default route, all that cobblestone will get sucked out of this chest and sent to the valid destination over here. So now I moved all my cobblestone from point A to point B. You notice that's important. If it's a default route, it's not looking for requested items, okay? So what I'm actually going to do here is we're going to leave this default route back on and leave the requested items off. And I'm doing that because I want to show you what the next module does. You know what? Actually, before we do that, let's talk about one other behavior that we can do out of this pipe. If instead of a quick sort module, I had an extractor module plugged in here, the behavior of this chest is going to change a little bit. You'll notice this has an interface, okay? So you can click on that exclamation mark, and extraction modules have built-in sneaky functionality. And for those of you that don't remember old sneaky pipes, what sneaky means is that even though this pipe is connected on the bottom of this inventory, by setting the configuration on the extractor module, I can have it extract from a different side of the attached inventory. And that's important for working with some machines from certain mods. Like for example, IC2 machines only output to the right. So that would be...
To the sides, yeah.
Well, yeah, right. To the sides, sorry. Well, actually, I think it's just the one side, right? Isn't it just the side that the UI points to? I don't know. It doesn't matter. So this will let you customize an extractor module to point at a certain side of an inventory. But now what will happen is, you remember before when I had this set as the default route and I put cobblestone in here, nothing happened. But now that I have an extractor in there, if I place cobblestone in there, what should happen here is that cobblestone will get sucked out, thrown into the network, and now because there's no valid destination for the cobblestone, it will end up in my default route. But notice, it's only pulling one out at a time. Remember I talked about there being multiple levels of chassis. Well, in addition, there's multiple levels of some modules. So you'll see here for extraction modules, there's an extractor, there's an advanced extractor, there's an extractor Mark II, and an advanced extractor Mark II, and a Mark III version of both of those. Let's talk about those real quick. An extractor Mark II will pull out, as opposed to one item at a time, will pull out entire stacks at a time. I think. Is it stacks or is it just...
No, it's just one item, but faster.
Okay, so it's a lot faster, right? So you notice here, instead of just getting one every, second or so, it looks like we're getting 3 or 4 a second. And if instead of that module, I were to put the Mark III in here, then you're going to see the whole
Stack,
shebang of stacks pull out. And I believe it will even pull out, I can't even put them in there fast enough. It pulls out something like 4 or 5 stacks a tick, if I remember correctly. It's really fast. The other option we talked about there is an advanced extractor. So if instead of using a, where'd it go? Oh, did I not give myself one? Okay. So if instead of using a regular extractor, I use an advanced extractor, you'll see here that now I have a list of items. So let's say I only wanted to have it pull out cobble. It still has its sneaky functionality with the sneaky button, and this can be either an include or an exclude button. So now if I go back in here and I put cobble and dirt and gravel in here, it will only pull out cobble. You see that? Although it did pull out a whole stack, which surprises me. That's okay. Because I thought they were the same speed as their counterparts. But if instead of that, I switch this to exclude cobble, it will now pull all the other items out of there, okay? And it pulls out, it looks like about a stack every second or so.
Yeah, the advanced module puts out the stack here.
Yeah. And then, of course, the faster ones will be even faster than the stack per second. You'll get multiple stacks per tick. So does that make sense, guys? There's 2 ways to insert items into your network using modules. You can either use a quick sort module or an extractor module. The difference is that the quick sort module will only pull items out that have valid destinations. Okay? I hope that makes sense. So now what we want to talk about is how can we get items into our chests? Well, I already showed you one way, right? We can use a default route. So anything that doesn't have a destination will end up in our default route. Or we can use a basic pipe with requested items. Well, that's kind of boring. Let's talk about other ways we can do it. Using this logistics chassis Mark I, I'm going to show you how to use an item sync module. An item sync module works very much like a basic logistics pipe. You see, when I click on the interface for it, I actually have an interface that looks just like a basic logistics pipe. So from here, I can go ahead and say, this is where I want gravel to go. And even though I have a default route over here, right? Now, if I were to put gravel into my chest, it's going to start pulling out the gravel. What item do I have in there? I have that advanced extractor in here. That's actually not what I want. Let's go back to a quick sort. So I'm going to throw a quick sort module back in here. Okay.
What's important at the quick sort, by the way, is that it doesn't, quick sort any items that don't have a specific item sync. Right? So it doesn't just quick sort to the default route any items. It's just sorting into the specific item syncs. Right.
So there, since I have an item sync over here with gravel assigned to it, you notice the gravel that I put in here quickly gets sorted out and thrown over here into the chest. Really easy. And the reason that you want to have item sync modules is because in a multiple slot chassis like this, it allows me to have an item sync. You notice, by the way, when you pull these modules out of their chassis, that they maintain their settings. And I'll show you something neat about that here in just a minute as well. So now I have a gravel going to this chest. And we can talk about another module that we're going to plug in there in just a minute. But I want to show you a different way to sort. The next module we're going to look at is called a polymorphic item sync module. And this is a really, really neat module for sorting into chests and into things like crates from better storage or applied energistic systems, things like that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some stuff in this chest. I'm going to put an obsidian. I'm not going to mess with that yet. I'm going to put a dirt, and I'm going to put a... Yeah, that's good. So we put obsidian and dirt into there, okay? So now, remember, we're using a quick sort, so it's only going to pull things out that have valid destinations. Just raw pork chop in here. So now I'm going to put cobbled, obsidian, and dirt all in here, and watch what happens. The obsidian gets pulled out, and the dirt gets pulled out, and it automatically gets sorted into this chest. So a polymorphic item sync will look at the connected inventory and will match any items in there and act like an item sync for those items. So no matter what was in this chest, it could have been ore, it could have been dirt, it could have been mob drops, anything that's in this chest. If something gets sorted into the network, it will result in it landing in this connected inventory. So this is really good. I use this for like my miscellaneous chests. I use it for mob drops. I use it for DSUs actually, because that way if I ever need to move my DSUs around, I don't have to reprogram. I don't have to reprogram all my item syncs. So that's how a polymorphic item sync works. And then the last thing I want to show you is a mod-based item sync. And the mod-based item sync is really clever. What it lets you do is take an item, like let's say we wanted to sort cobblestone pipes. So here's a cobblestone transport pipe. I put it in there. You notice it automatically detected it as coming from Buildcraft Transport. I can add that to it. Let's say I wanted to add, let's see. What mods are we playing with right now? MFR. So let's say I wanted to add rednet cable. Hey, what's going on here? Rednet cable. So that's pulled up out of Mine Factory Reloaded. And now I have Buildcraft Transport and Mine Factory Reloaded both added to these mod-based item sync. So now anything that comes out of that mod, so let's say I put, I don't know, a PRC in there, right? I put a PRC in there. If I put at least I think that comes from the mod, from the same thing. Yeah, so that grabbed it, and it ended up in my mod chest. Let's say I wanted to put a stack of cobblestone pipes and a stack of gold pipes all in here. Oops, that's not my chest. All those items are going to get sorted out, and they're going to end up in my mod-based item sync chest. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. You guys can easily see how cool that is. And of course, you can add or remove stuff as you want. All right, so again, we were talking about over here about having multiple modules in a chassis. And the reason I want to show you how that works is because it lets us use a couple other neat modules. For some reason, I don't have any of these in my inventory, but the next module I want to talk about is called a provider module. And a provider module essentially does exactly what it says. It provides the content, it provides access to the contents of the attached inventory to the rest of your network. So in this case, I attached it to this chest, and we put, I don't know, let's put some wood in here. We've got a stack of oak wood in there. So now two things are going to happen. Oops. Where'd it go? Oak wood. So I went back to my item sync, and I tell it now that any wood that enters the system, I want it to go to that chest. So if I toss some wood in that pipe, it grabs it and throws it in there. And in addition, the rest of my network can now see that there's wood in there. That leads us to this pipe over here, okay? Oh, where'd our request pipe go? Oh, there it is. So this guy over here is called a request pipe. And this is a manual way to get items back out of your logistics pipe network. You've probably seen me and a lot of other people that play with logistics pipe use this before. And this is the basic request logistics pipes. And what happens here, if I right click this with my wrench, you'll now see everything that's available in my network. And I'll explain to you why that moss stone is there here in just a minute. But the request pipe is a real clean UI that'll show you everything that has a provider or that's in some other way is being allowed to be accessed by your network up here in the window, and it has multiple pages. And it has a search box here. So if I were to type wood in there, you notice it filters it. And then down here, you've got the ability to filter between a couple other things. And we'll get back into that a little bit more in a minute. But what I can do essentially here is, let's say I wanted to get multiples of 1 or multiples of 10 or multiples of stacks out of my network. In this case, we'll just request a stack. I can request a stack, click on the oak wood so it's highlighted, and click request. And then what's going to happen is all that wood's going to get shot out of that chest over there because I have a provider attached to it. Where to go? One stack, and it's going to end up in the inventory that's connected to my request pipe. Now, if I didn't have an inventory here, that request pipe would still get the items and it would just spit them all over the floor. So you can do it either way. If you want to have them just dropped on the floor, you can do that. If you want to have them enter into an inventory, you can do that. Let's get those sorted back into that chest. The provider module is another one that has upgrades to it. The provider module Mark II simply just provides faster. It'll provide entire stacks at a time instead of breaking them up. I've honestly...
Actually, a lot faster.
Yeah, like...
It's...
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. If you have, for example, big storage with, I don't know, maybe a DSU or maybe a crate with several items, you will end up having provider MK2 in it, because otherwise it doesn't provide fast enough if you request anything in a later, bigger logistics system.
Okay, so much faster. The other things I wanted to show you were, obviously this is a Mark III and here's a Mark IV, and I think, yeah, I had a Mark IV over there. So there's a couple other modules that I wanted to show you guys. The Terminus module is exactly what it sounds like. It gives you a destination that's like a backup to your item sinks. So if everywhere on your network that requests, for example, cobblestone, no longer has room for cobblestone in that inventory, it will end up over here in the Terminus module. Okay? You notice it pulled that cobble out because the cobblestone did not have any valid destinations with item sinks on it. And that's why it ended up over here in the Terminus module. So that's a really good way for you to have like overflow control. What I used to use them for back in IC, when I used IC2, was I would have, I would want to keep like a chest full of cobble, right? But I didn't need 1,000,000 cobble. So after my chest filled up, I would have a Terminus module hooked up to like a recycler. So any overflow of cobblestone would all go out to my recycler. And of course, because it looks a lot like an item sink, you can have multiple terminated items here. So you could have cobble and dirt and sand and gravel, anything that you think you're going to have a ton of. The last thing here is called a passive supplier module. And passive supplier modules are a little bit tough for people to understand, I think. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier about how a passive supplier, the difference between passive and active requests. Before we do that, let's talk about what a supplier pipe does real quick. And I thought I had one in my inventory, but I don't see it. So a supplier logistics pipe connects to an inventory, and it can connect to lots of different kinds of inventories, okay? It can connect to machines, it can connect to chests, anything that has a valid inventory a supplier can connect to. And what it's going to do is it's going to ask you what it should keep stocked in this chest. So I can tell it, for example, that I always wanted 5 cobblestone in this chest. That's weird. There it goes. Okay, so 5 cobblestone. So now, anywhere that it has access to cobblestone in my network, okay, do we have a, what do we have on here, an extractor? Okay, good, a quick sort. So let's get rid of that Terminus module because that's just going to confuse things. So if I were to put this cobblestone into this chest, you notice what it did there is it pulled out where's my cobble? Do I have cobble going somewhere else? No. Where'd it go?
Sorry. You have a passive supplier here.
Oh, yeah.
One cobble.
Yep. Thank you.
Put that in there, and the rest was going to, I think, back here, right?
No, it ended up in the default route.
No, just 2 of them.
Yeah, that's because it only pulled 3 because it was filling the passive first. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on here. I want you guys to watch. See those sparkles? The sparkles are showing us that, I'm going to take this out for a second. The sparkles are showing us that this supplier pipe is trying to get cobble. But you guys remember what I talked about earlier? In order for something to be available for the network, you've got to have a provider on it. So this is a situation where having a chassis with multiple inputs on it is really useful. By placing a provider module in there, I'm now providing the contents of this inventory to the rest of my network. So now the active request of the supplier logistics pipe allows it to pull cobble into it. And if you see if I take them out, it's going to request another 5. See that? It knows that there's 5 available in the network and it requests them. Easy. So anytime it doesn't have enough, it will go ahead and fill it. Now, there's a button here for allowing partial requests. What partial requests do is it will do its best to keep this thing supplied. I'm going to caution you guys, partial requests provide a much heavier load on logistics pipe networks. So if you have huge networks with tons of partial requests everywhere, it's going to possibly create a drag on the server and on the network, okay? But as long as this thing sees that there's 5 available somewhere in the network, it's going to request them over. Now, what happened a minute ago when we had this passive supplier module set up? Well, what it did was, remember, we talked about the quick sort module. So the quick sort module is going to provide things to any valid destination passively, okay? That's really important because a passive supplier module is only going to fill the contents of its attached inventory if something enters the network on its own. And I know this is a little bit complicated, so hopefully this makes sense. So the reason that we saw 3 cobblestone get pulled out of this chest is because during the time it took to request for the cobblestone to make it into this chest, 2 more also got passively sent over here to it. So here's what happens. I put the module in here. The quick sort sends it a cobble. Okay, and in the meantime, 2 more cobble also got sent over here. But as soon as the 1 cobble landed in this chest, those other 2 didn't have anywhere to go anymore, and so they ended up over here in the chest. So the issue with passive suppliers is as you can see, you get a little bit of inconsistency about exactly what happens with how many items and where they all go. If you have a really consistent supply of items, I used to use passive supplier modules, for example, for the old forestry farms to recycle their own production back into them. So things like that don't have a long distance to travel are good uses for passive supplier modules, whereas things like this that are far away or where they could have a ton of different places to go are not necessarily the best uses for them. Speaking of distance, I do want to point something out. Logistics pipes fills requests by distance. So the further away that, I guess the closer something is to where an item enters a network, it'll get filled first. So requests get filled from near to far, and then there's some things that can impact that also, and we'll talk about that pipe here in just a minute. So I don't want to beat a dead horse here or dumb this down too much like maybe some other YouTubers do, but I want to reiterate important concepts, okay? So passive request on the network will only be enacted on things that are already in the network. Active requests require that something be made available to the network before they're able to be filled. And then you've got a supplier, which will supply an inventory constantly with whatever you've told it to supply, and a provider, which will provide access to an attached inventory to the rest of the network, okay? And those are important because now we're going to talk about one of the really cool new features that has been pretty recently added to logistics pipes, and that is liquid logistics pipes. They're just phenomenal. I'm going to go through kind of the same way I did with the other logistics systems, kind of basic to more advanced. The first pipe I want to show you here is called the Logistics Liquid Basic Pipe, and it's right here. And you'll notice it has a really simple interface. And think of this as kind of an item sync, but for liquids. So I have this set to water. And what that means is that any water that enters the logistics network is going to end up, if it doesn't have anywhere else to go, it's going to end up specifically right here at this attached inventory, which in this case is these tanks. You'll notice here that even though this is all dealing with liquid, we're using golden transport pipes. We're not using liquid pipes over here. And that's what makes this really neat, because you don't have to have a second network. You can get liquid inserted into your network and then have your logistics pipe network act upon it. So there's a couple different ways to get liquid into your network. I want to show you probably the more complicated of the two first. And the reason I'm showing you this is because it allows you to get liquid in from any type of other source that uses liquid in a pipe. So I think you can use this with liquid ducts. You can use it with waterproof pipes. I haven't tried it with the stuff from UE, but I assume it works the same way. But you know, when you're dealing with UE, that's a dangerous assumption. But anyway, what you see here is a pretty basic Buildcraft pump setup, right? So I've got a Stirling engine with just a big supply of fuel, and it pumps out to a golden waterproof pipe, just like what you would expect. The next pipe you have here is called a logistics liquid connector pipe. And what this does is it connects a logistics network to a liquid network. So over here I have regular liquid pipes, over here I have regular logistics pipes. And what you have to do then is connect that to a liquid insertion pipe, a logistics liquid insertion pipe. And what this does is it converts the actual liquid in the pipes over into the format that the logistic pipes move around. And you'll see it happen here in a second. The best way I can explain it is the logistics pipes basically puts the liquid in little capsules and moves it around the network for you, okay? So watch what happens to this tank, okay? Which is connected to, again, my basic pipe here when I turn this pump on. Pump's going to start pumping. You will see the pipe fill up with water. You'll see it hit the insertion pipe. And slowly but surely, you see those little sparkles? The insertion pipe will convert it over into my liquid liquid storage and my logistics pipe, and it'll start filling this tank up. And you see here we've already gotten 2, almost 3 buckets full pumped over into the network.
It's more than 3 buckets, yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, it's going fast. I did want to point out to you that if you have a machine that is connectable directly to one of these insertion pipes, what you can do instead of what I've done here is use an insertion pipe directly into your network. Oh, I'm out of conductive pipes, or transport pipes. Here we go. Yeah. What then you can do is connect it directly like this. And in this case, for example, this is going to allow the pump to pump much quicker because, you know, the golden waterproof pipes don't support the maximum capacity of a pump, whereas the liquid insertion pipes don't have any kind of constriction on them for how much water can flow through. So in this case, it's just going to allow more water to be pumped out a lot quicker. You see how quickly that filled up once I switched that over? So that is those are the 2 ways to get liquid into your network. This one's obviously a little more simple, but it requires being able to hook it up to a machine or an inventory that supports this insertion pipe. So you have 2 ways to do it, just depending on what your application are. The next pipe I want to show you is the logistics liquid provider pipe. And just like a provider module over on the item side, this makes this water accessible to our network. And we can see that if we were to go over here and look at, say, did I build one over here? I thought I did. I thought I built a request pipe somewhere, but I guess I didn't.
No, you didn't.
So if I go over here next to my item request pipe, okay, and I toss I could have sworn I had one. Supplier. I'm just going crazy.
I asked you before. But...
Did you?
Yeah.
So here is our logistics liquid request pipe, okay? And what I can do with that is I can either hook it up to a machine, or I can just hook it up really simply to another liquid inventory. So over here, if I were to say grab my wrench and hit this thing, you see it shows, now this says 57,000 water, but remember, a bucket is 1,000 millibuckets. So that's actually 57,000 millibuckets, or 57 buckets of liquid. So if I were to say request 3 millibuckets, or 3 buckets worth, I can hit request. And you'll see there, 3 buckets of water is going to appear into my tank. And you see here, that moves us down to 54 buckets available, and that's not going to refill because I turned that pump off. So the provider makes all this water available to my network, okay? Something important to know about the providers is that unlike other types of ways to get liquid out of tanks, the provider does not have to be at the bottom level of the tank. Is that correct, Zoro? The provider can be anywhere on the tank?
Yes. Actually, we're trying to do that on any tank, but the Buildcraft tanks are supported to be
anywhere on the
pipes
tank.
can be on anywhere on that tank. That means they can be on the top, on the bottom, in the middle, somewhere.
So your mileage
We're doing that to other tanks like Raycraft as well. And yeah, that's still in progress.
Okay, so your mileage may vary with non-Buildcraft tanks for right now. I want to show you a couple other neat applications. I've set up a couple more of the logistic liquid basic pipes on these 2 tanks to show you another way to get liquid into your system. And you'll notice here I have this one set up for lava, and I have this one set up to passively request oil. Hey, Zora, remind me to talk about this basic logistics pipes over here as soon as I'm done with this, okay? So you see over here, I have a tank, and attached to this tank, I have another new pipe called the Logistics Liquid Extractor pipe. And just like my extraction module that we used over on the item side, all it's going to do is pull out whatever gets stuck into this inventory and send it along into the network wherever it's supposed to be. So if I put 4 buckets of oil in here, it's going to extract it. And that oil is going to automatically end up over here because of the liquid basic pipe. It's going to pull all of it out, and when it's done, bam, it's all over there now. I can do the same thing with lava. I put it in, the extractor pumps it out, and it ends up over here in the appropriate tank. So what this does... Yeah.
What I just wanted to say about that sparkles, that little things, they all indicate that power is used, by the way. So if they do their thing, if they sparkle, that means the pipe uses power. And those liquid capsules, like you call them, do use just a bit more power than anything else, actually. So making one of those capsules is not just magic, but it's more use of power to make them and send them through the network.
No free stuff from logistics pipes, folks. You got to pay with power.
Yes.
So this basic logistics pipe, the reason I wanted to mention this specifically is because logistics pipes operates on a very specific routing table, and it will keep track of all the possible routes in your network. And in order to do that, it has to understand where to send things at junctions. So whenever you're building a logistics network, if you ever have an intersection of pipes, you have to have either a basic logistics pipe or some other kind of specialized pipe from logistics pipe, something that has these green lines on it, okay? Remember earlier when I mentioned these green lines show that there's a valid connection to the network? They've got to point in each direction, or else your items that pass through these intersections are going to get lost or misrouted. You'll notice that it's on all these logistic liquid pipes. It's on all the chassis. Essentially, it has to be some kind of actual logistics pipe in order to route items appropriately. There are 3 more pipes I want to show you real quickly.
But one second about that routing thing. There's just a very new feature. I think you should show that to everyone. Like you need to have the glasses. It's just a bit taking a bit ahead, but if you have the goggles on and if you sneak and right click the pipe in front of you without any wrench.
So just with my bare hands?
Yeah.
So I sneak and right click it. Oh,
Yes.
cool.
That is the routing table, actually. So,
Hang on. So what he threw me is an item I was going to show you here in just a minute, and they're called the logistics HUD glasses, and we'll come back to those. And they give you a HUD of what your logistics network is doing. And what I did was he had me shift right click with an open hand, and that gives me the routing table. So I guess if you didn't have a correct pipe here, like let's say we just had one of these.
well, it shows it still.
Right, but let me just reset it here. Oh. Well, yeah, it still shows it as valid. Well, yeah. I can promise you guys that even though this thinks it's valid, it's not. That's not going to work.
Yeah, it's not for valid or not. No, it's just well, it shows you if everything is connected right, and it shows you if it has 3 colors actually.
Okay.
One is for power, one is for routing, and one is for the other thing. So I don't know what the third thing is for, but it is just so new that thing. Actually, I didn't even use it yet because it's in the newest dev build. Just joined that.
Okay.
So yeah, it's pretty cool.
All right, and we'll get more into those HUD glasses here in just a minute. But remember, you have to have some kind of logistics pipe at every single intersection, or your stuff's not going to work correctly. The last pipe I want to show you is the liquid logistics supplier pipe. And there's 2 versions of this, okay? There's the Mark 1, which I have installed right here. And what this pipe does is it works with traditional types of liquid storages like buckets or capsules or cans, those kind of things. And you'll see here the interface for it looks just like a regular supplier pipe, but it's for liquids. So if you have cans or buckets or whatever else of liquid storage in your system, it'll supply them to an inventory. So this works good for things like, I used to use them for forestry to make bog earth and stuff like that, where we'd throw capsules into inventories to make that kind of stuff. Probably a much cooler function is achieved with the logistics liquid supplier pipe Mark II. And this one requires a liquid inventory to be attached. And what it is going to do is, oops, don't want to sort it. It's going to give us this kind of an interface. So first, I can come up here to this blank box. And by the way, unlike a lot of other systems, you don't have to have the liquid to select it up here. It's going to automatically identify all the liquids that are in, and you can just left click it, and it'll sort through everything that's available in your world. See that? So in this case, I'm going to put water on it, and I'm going to have it keep 5 buckets of water supplied to this attached inventory. And remember, we have a provider over there. And because we have a provider over there, it's going to shoot 5 buckets of water over here, and it's always going to keep 5 buckets supplied. So if I break that, and I put another pipe down, or another, tank down, it's going to constantly supply 5 buckets of water over into that tank. Here, we can turn our pump back on. So as long as there's liquid in the network, it'll supply it via the supplier pipe Mark II.
Yeah.
That is, I think, everything we wanted to cover as far as the liquid stuff goes. Did I forget anything over here, Zora?
Well, still we got the crafting things to do, but I would just prefer to do the basic crafting first.
Correct. We're going to come back over and do the liquid crafting here after that. So the next thing I want to talk about is some more advanced uses of these pipes. We've seen how to do some basic sorting. We've seen how to provide stuff to our network, and we've seen how to keep constant supply of things like this cobblestone. I want to show you what we've done over here. You'll notice I have a chest with a basic logistics pipe hooked up to it. And if I open the inventory, you'll see that this is essentially an item sink for smooth stone. I haven't connected it to the network because I want to show you how this works. Let's get rid of this stuff. I'm going to take my smooth stone and I'm going to throw it up here into my, what I like to refer to as a dump chest. Okay, dump chests are where I say you can put stuff and it goes to where it's supposed to. And it hasn't moved. And that's because this isn't connected. Now, if I were to connect this with just a regular type of pipe, you're going to see what'll happen is the smooth stone will get thrown out of that thing, and it'll end up over here in our chest, just like what you would expect, okay? But there's a couple other ways you can connect this to the system to prevent that from happening. Probably the most important one to understand is that you can put a diamond pipe on it. And what a diamond pipe is going to do is it's going to provide power over here to this pipe, but not allow items to flow through the network through the diamond pipe. So you'll notice that my 4 little squares turned green, which shows that this pipe is receiving power, but it does not have a valid network connection. You see the red lines. And it doesn't matter. Even if I were to go in here and tell it that stone could flow through it in these 2 directions, it's not going to matter. It will not allow items to pass through it, okay? The next one you can do that is important to know is you can put an iron pipe on it. We're using a dev build right now, and the iron pipe is a little bit buggy, so I'm not going to actually demonstrate it live. But what an iron pipe would do, which an iron pipe should do, is allow power and items to flow through it, but only one way. But it's not working. All right, guys, the pipe I was about to show you is called the logistics firewall pipe. And you'll notice that Zorro is no longer here. We had some technical difficulties with this pipe, and enough time has passed where he had to go. But I'm going to finish up this first part of the video, and then I'll tell you what we're going to cover in part 2. So the firewall pipe is an interesting pipe. What it does is it prevents different things from passing through it, okay? So you notice here that I've got like some red and green there, as well as 4 red squares. So this pipe's not receiving power, and that's because you'll notice power flow is blocked. But what we're going to do is, remember, we're requesting stone here at this pipe. And what we want to do here is, first of all, allow stone, okay? And we're going to allow power flow. That's going to activate the pipe, and ta-da, all of our stone gets sucked in from over here. This pipe has a lot of different uses. It lets you connect different logistics networks without, say, providering or crafting being allowed across them. Obviously, the ability to filter or block items from passing through it and all these other things makes it really neat in order to connect multiple systems together and see how they run. The next set of pipes I want to show you is called an entrance and an exit pipe. And these pipes do something a little bit different. The point of this pipe is to kind of bypass the rest of your network. So let's say you had, I don't know, let's say a quarry here, okay? And a quarry was, you were just trying to get ores and stuff out of your quarry. You wanted all of your gravel and cobble and all that other stuff to end up going somewhere else. So what you can do here is you connect, let's say you sorted over here with your diamond pipe, and you had your ores and stuff enter the pipe, the system one way, and you had all the stuff you didn't want enter your system another way. You're going to connect it to this entrance pipe, just like I did here with this obsidian pipe. And anything that enters that is going to bypass all this other sorting, okay? And it's going to find my destination pipe, and then it's going to attach itself to whatever's hooked up there. So, for example, I could have a void pipe here, or I could have, I don't know, a pulverizer here, or whatever. Anything you want. But you only can have one inventory attached to it, okay? It's got to be kind of the end of a chain to work correctly. So let's verify what's going on here, okay? I have a route here, which is for stone. And I'm going to toss a stone in here. And what you're going to see is, once it hits the golden pipes here. By the way, you don't have to use golden pipes in your logistic network. The vast majority of things will get a pretty good acceleration boost from your regular logistics pipes. But anyway, there you go. There's the stone. It ended up there. So even though I have a valid destination for stone, okay, remember, if stone enters my network from here, okay, it ends up over here in this chest. But if stone enters my network here, oh, not close. It's going to end up way over there because of the entrance and exit pipe. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, too bad. Okay, a couple things I want to show you guys just for some general practicality. I'm not going to get too much into how other mods interact with logistics pipes in this video. That's actually what we're going to do specifically in the next video. But you'll see I have a basic logistics pipe, and I have an item tesseract. Over there, I have another item tesseract, and what you see here is how to connect two networks via a tesseract. And it's really simple. A basic logistics pipe connected into a tesseract. On the other end, a tesseract connected into a basic logistics pipe. They've got to match up. Okay, they have to be set the same way. And that will actually provide power and routing through your tesseracts into the two networks. Okay? The next thing I want to show you, and this is where logistics pipe starts to get really cool and fun and powerful, and that is automatic crafting. You guys remember when we were over here a long time ago, and I showed you how the request pipe had this moss stone in it, and I've added an iron pickaxe recipe because I was testing something. But the reason for that is because you'll see over here I have a little setup, and it allows me to create moss stone. But we're not going to get into that just yet. These are called logistics crafting tables. And for those of you that were familiar with the old style automatic crafting tables from BuildCraft, these essentially do the same thing except they're a little bit better. Number one, they have an inventory, which means items that don't stack can be used in them. And number two, they have the ability to import directly from NEI. So you see here, I have one kind of set up that makes sticks. I have one that's set up to make a wooden sword, and I think that one's blank still. So let me show you how this works. First, you build your logistics crafting table. You hook it up to this nifty pipe called a crafting logistics pipe. And then you open up your logistics crafting table inventory. And let's say we want to teach this one how to make planks. So planks, we're going to pull up the recipe in NEI, and we're going to hit the question mark, and it imports it automatically. And you see here, it shows what we're missing. It shows the result of the recipe. And you see I have it programmed into here, how to make sticks. And I have it programmed into here, how to make a sword. But we also still have to teach our system those recipes. So a crafting logistics pipe hooked up to a crafting table, when you click on the pipe with your wrench. By the way, even in this build, I have 3 different kinds of wrenches that will work. I like using Omni wrenches, but you could also use a crescent wrench from TE or the BuildCraft wrench. All of them would interact the same way with these pipes. So once I have this open, I'm going to click Import. And here you go. It shows what it inputs and what it outputs. You notice there's some other parts of this interface here that we're not going to mess with just yet. I'll explain what they do here in a minute, but we're not really going to demo them today. So now, when I go over here to my request pipe, you see it now knows how to make planks. I could put in 10 planks and hit request. See, the wood is provided in my system, and the next thing you know, 10 planks show up. My system knows how to make planks. What I need to do here is teach it the rest of these recipes. Import, import, great. And now, my system knows how to make a wooden sword. So I can click that, hit request, and what it's going to do, if you watch, the wood's going to go over there, and it's going to get turned into sticks and planks. And that happened really fast. We didn't get over here in time. And then the next thing you know, there's your wooden sword. Now, if you do not have necessary resources to make, where to go? To make whatever you're requesting, it'll tell you. Missing 2 oak wood. So it requires 2 oak wood in order to make that recipe. I put them back in there, and I hit request again. It'll make it, and in a few seconds, it'll show up. Now, if there's any leftover resources, those are going to end up in your default chest. So because we make more planks and sticks than we need, those items are going to end up back over here in our default route. So you got to be careful how you set your default route up, because if you're crafting or if you're pumping stuff into your system and it doesn't really have a place to go, you can fill up that inventory really quick. A good solution here might be to upgrade this basic pipe to a chassis and then add a provider module to it, because that way you could have it as your default, but if there was extra resources lying around in it, it could still use it to do other stuff. Speaking of chassis, I want to show you something here. Notice I have a Logistics Chassis Mark III right here. And I want to once again point out that on basic pipes like this one, the red line indicates an attached inventory, okay? But on a chassis, you notice that the attached inventory is notated with an orange line. And that is because you can have multiple inventories next to a chassis. So even though you have multiple inventories, the chassis is only communicating with one of those inventories, okay? So the orange line is our connected inventory and the red line is not. Now if I grab my wrench and I shift right click it, it will change the connected inventory. Did you guys see that? And remember, we have a passive supplier module in there, so whenever I change it, it's sending it cobbled if there's nothing in there. Pretty straightforward, right? So shift right click and it'll switch over whichever one that's attached to. Now, sometimes you won't want to have your pipes connect to multiple inventories. For example, this supplier pipe. Now, suppliers are not like chassis. Suppliers will look at every connected inventory, okay? And that's a bit of a problem. We don't want that. You see what's going on now? It's continually requesting cobblestone because it thinks that it needs some. But because of the nature of the pipes, it's not going to end up in the right place every time. And that is where upgrades come in. The upgrades I want to show you how they work are disconnection upgrades. I'll talk about satellite pipes and satellite upgrades here briefly in a minute, but they don't have quite as much use as they used to because of some of the recent changes in Buildcraft. But what a disconnect upgrade does, and you notice they're directional, right? So there are disconnect up, down, north, south, east, and west. So notice this chest is east of my chassis. So I grab my disconnect upgrade and I right click it and it no longer connects to that inventory. Pretty straightforward. There are other kinds of upgrades. There are sneaky upgrades. And remember our extractors all had built-in sneaky functionality, but other things do not. They do not allow you to, say, insert from a specific side. So a sneaky upgrade would allow a chassis, say, on the bottom of a machine to insert from the side if you use the correct insertion upgrade. Pretty straightforward. All right, I want to cover a couple more quick things on crafting, and then we'll wrap up part one, and I'll tell you what we're going to do in part two. Once you have your crafting network kind of set up here, you may want to have a little bit more organization to it, and that's where the crafting sign creator comes in. The way this works is you build it using one of the two recipes, and then you can come up to your crafting pipes and really simply right-click them. And look at that. You get a really easy picture of exactly what your crafting tables or your crafting pipes are taught to make. You can do them on any side of the pipe. Oh, I'm in creative mode. If you're not in creative mode, this actually takes damage from laying pipes down. See that? And then if you shift right click, you can pick them back up. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, but I showed you this real quick setup here from Moss Stone, and I want to talk really briefly about liquid crafting. You know, again, I'm not going to focus too much on interaction with other mods. We're going to do that in part two, but I want to show you some of the power of the new liquid routing logistics pipes. I have a satellite pipe here. You see, it's called a logistics liquid satellite pipe. What a satellite pipe does, and there's two kinds, there is a satellite pipe for items and a satellite pipe for liquid. But it allows you to build items that take multiple different inputs or steps. What you used to have to do, and I was going to set it up here to show it to you, but automatic crafting tables don't accept stacked, non-stackable items anymore. But say, for example, I needed to build something out of, I don't know, out of swords. Okay, or a quarry. Quarry takes a pickaxe, right? As part of the recipe. Well, you can't stack pickaxes. So what you used to have to do is set up a satellite pipe, which I have set up right here, and then inside your crafting pipe interface, you would have a satellite input set up. And I did it because I was going to show you how it worked with making this iron pickaxe, but it's not a very good example because there's no reason to just not put the sticks in the regular recipe. But you see here what I've done is I have the recipe in, I had the recipe in here, where'd it go? Let's see. Easy to fix. Oops. Okay, so there's the recipe. And if you had the recipe in here, you could set it up on the satellite pipe, and then the satellite items will get pulled into the number of the pipe as indicated here. And you see here, this has a UI on it too, so I can set that whatever I want. And those would end up in this. Whenever you did a crafting request, whatever you indicated, like here, 2 sticks, would get pushed into the inventory attached to the satellite pipe. Does that make sense? I hope so. I don't have a good way to demo it right now. And it's not something you'll end up using very often. By the way, just if you're curious, I did mention the advanced satellite upgrade. What the advanced satellite upgrade lets you do if you slap it into a crafting pipe is instead of having your normal input and output, it gives you the ability to have multiple satellites with multiple inputs and outputs and all kinds of crazy stuff. So that could be good for particular builds. You know, my goal here, guys, I didn't really mention it earlier. My goal here is to show you guys how the fundamentals of logistics pipe works. This is such a powerful and flexible system that you can do all kinds of stuff with it. So I'm not going to really get into builds, just into how everything works. So let's talk about what I've got going on over here. You notice I have a MFR liquid crafter here. And I have my recipe in it for moss stone, which is water, cobblestone, and wheat. If you remember, I have plenty of water. It's being provided for by my liquid provider pipe right there. And over here we have a logistics liquid satellite pipe. So the first thing I'm going to do is right click on that, and I'm going to give it an ID of 2, just so we don't confuse it with that other one. And you'll notice here in my crafting pipe, I have manually plugged in moss stone and wheat and cobble, but we're missing the water. And this is where one of the new upgrades comes in. It's called the liquid crafting upgrade. And what the liquid crafting upgrade does is you plug it into your logistics pipe, into your crafting pipe like that. And now I've got the ability over here to turn on and add water to my recipe. So now via the satellite pipe, it's going to pull a bucket of water in each time I try to make this recipe. Okay? So now let's go back over to our crafting system. And we are going to request 1 moss stone. Missing 0 water. That's weird. Let's see. Cobblestone wheat. 1 water. Well, that should definitely work. I don't know why it's not. Why did it say missing 0 water? That's a weird error. Oh, missing 1 wheat. Oh yeah, we definitely are. Definitely don't have any wheat in the system. So let's fix that real quick. Let's see, where was our provider? There it is. So let's grab some wheat. Just throw a stack of cobble in here. Oops. And a stack of wheat. I think the missing 0 water is a mistake. I think it's just because I didn't have wheat and stuff available to it. So, now let's try again. There we go. So request successful. Now, the only caveat to this is it's going to put the water in. Okay, now it's got all the items it needs, but it's not going to do anything until I deliver it a redstone pulse, because that's how MFR liquid crafters work. But let's say I were to use a rednet controller and constantly provide pulses to it. Anything I wanted to request over there would pop right out. So I could come over here and request 10 of these guys. Request successful. You notice if I come look over here, it gave it 10 buckets of liquid. It gave it 10 wheat, 10 cobblestone. And as long as it gets enough redstone pulses, it's going to give me exactly what I requested. Pretty awesome. Okay, so that covers all the pipes and modules and some of the upgrades. Like I said, I glossed over some of them because you're never going to really use them. The only thing I haven't really talked about much is the soldering station. The soldering station is used to build some of the more advanced pipes. For example, do you remember earlier we talked about like the upgraded supplier pipes and things like that? Well, one of the pipes that can be upgraded is a crafting pipe. So a crafting logistics pipe uses is kind of like a destination that pushes things into an inventory. Well, it can make items pretty quickly, but a crafting logistics pipe Mark II can make items even faster, significantly faster, stacks and stacks and stacks of items at a time. A crafting pipe Mark III not only can make items at a ridiculously fast pace, but also has a buffer. It has an internal buffer. So if you're trying to craft items in a situation where you're going to overflow the inventory that you have attached to it, the crafting pipe Mark III has additional buffer inventory in it. But if you notice here, it requires a couple things. First of all, it has to be made in a soldering station. It requires a nano hopper, which is another soldering station recipe. So there's a couple uses for the soldering station. In addition, these logistics HUD glasses are made from components that you make in the soldering station, as well as themselves being a recipe that gets put in the soldering station. And I'm going to show you how these work really quickly, and then wrap this up. So what the HUD goggles are going to do is show you at a glance what your network's up to. First of all, it can show you what kind of modules are in your assorted chassis. There's an item sink, right? There's an item sink that has wood in it, and it also provides, and it shows you what it's providing to the network. Here is a passive supplier module, and it shows you what it's passively supplying. And then you'll notice, like, remember I set this satellite pipe to 2? The last thing it'll do is show you if a job is in progress. So for example, oh, I almost forgot the coolest thing. I would have been really upset with myself if I forgot to show you this. So let's say I wanted to make another wooden sword. If I hit request here, you'll see over here, it popped up really quickly and went away. We'll get a better view of it here in a second. You get to see what the crafting pipes are up to. I almost forgot my favorite part of this whole system. We're going to talk about, where is it? Okay, I'm going to give myself one. The remote orderer logistics pipe. What does this do? Well, what it does is it allows us to use our request pipe remotely. Let me show you. You see here? This is a no-no. Remember earlier I told you anywhere you have a junction, you have to have a basic logistics pipe? Yeah. That's going to create problems if we left it like that. So I'm just going to plop down over here next to, I don't know. Here's a good spot. So next to this tesseract, I'm going to throw down a remote order logistics pipe, and I'm going to throw down a chest. What I can now do is build a remote orderer. Once I have my remote orderer, I come to my remote order logistics pipe and I right click on it, and you'll notice I get a connected to pipe message down here. Okay. And now anywhere in the world where I am, I can right click my remote orderer up in the sky and I have my request pipe interface. I can click on wooden sword, click on request, see what's going on here. It shows you what it's building. And then that stuff that I just requested will end up in the pipe connected to my remote order pipe. And some of you guys that watch my Let's Play have seen me do this before. This gives you the ability to use ender chests and ender pouches from Chicken Bones mods to effectively access your entire logistics pipe inventory and crafting network from anywhere in the world and pull items out whenever you need to. And if you, on your dump chest side, use another ender pouch and ender chest, you can loop items back into your system. Really crazy, powerful, and fun, and almost cheaty kind of feeling. But nevertheless, I really like it, and I use it in a ton of builds. Okay, so that is all the pipes and upgrades and modules and all that stuff, and a great overview of the new liquid crafting system. I'm going to go ahead and end this part 1 video here. Coming up in part 2, Zoro and I are going to show you how to make logistics pipes work with other systems. So for example, how do I make logistics pipes work with Applied Energistics? How do I make it work with Computer Craft? How do I make it work with Forestry and Bees? And a couple other mods that I think you guys will find interesting. It'll be a lot shorter than this one. Please leave me any feedback if you have questions that I didn't answer, and I will get to them in part 2. And if not, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Wylker, and I will see you next time.